Hello and welcome everybody to the Truth Lab. I'm your host, Alex Landry. Today's special guest is Mikki Willis, and this is episode 16. How are you doing, Mikki?
I'm doing fantastic. End of a very long day, but feeling really good. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic as well. I just finished a podcast. I called this the Truth Lab Bonanza, and just trying to keep the momentum going because I kind of slacked for a little bit, and I'm like, man, I got to get back on it. So really appreciate you and your time and really looking forward to this. So let's get right into it, Mikki. How would you describe your truth seeking journey?
Well, the truth-seeking journey for me really was by necessity because I lost my brother to a drug called AZT, which was prescribed by Anthony Fauci in the 80s and 90s and killed hundreds of thousands of people. And the grief of that was so hard on my mom because she's the one that put him on AZT that after my brother died, my mom died 34 days later. And so I was probably 23 years old at the time and really shook me awake and realizing that we had a lot of problems within Western medicine. But the internet wasn't what it is today and couldn't really do much about it. And when I saw Anthony Fauci resurface in 2020, that's when I realized it was time to do something.
That is powerful. I'm so sorry about you losing your brother and your mother like that.
Thank you.
Was that your only sibling?
I have two sisters and a brother, and
Okay.
it was an older brother, and he suffered with AIDS for several years, and then put him on what they said was a miracle drug, and everyone was getting worse on the drug, but they said follow the science and listen to him. This man knows what he's talking about, and so all the people who stayed on AZT, a lot of them died, and so when I saw him resurface in 2020. It was shocking to me. It was really shocking to me that he was still in business, first of all, and that he was in the position that he was in was almost unbelievable. And so I knew right away that something bad was going to happen. And that's how we were able to get a movie produced and released May 4th of 2020 so early. But that was our attempt to, really warn the world because it wasn't like a question for me. I knew something was afoul and I knew that people were going to be harmed. I didn't know to what degree, and to be quite honest with you, I think it's worse than I thought it would be. At this point, with all of the sterilization and women's cycles being messed up, and infertility, and heart attacks and strokes, and I probably know two or three people who haven't been directly affected at this point. Everyone else I know has either been harmed themselves or have had parents that have had strokes and heart attacks and 24-year-old brothers who have dropped on football fields, and it's really horrific what has happened. And I don't the sad part is we have not seen the worst of it yet. A lot of very smart medical professionals said that about the 5-year mark is when we'd see the effects of the stuff that was lying dormant, and I think we're starting to see that now.
Well, I just got to commend you, Mikki, because I just wasn't privy to that. And it makes sense now, the purpose, when purpose is behind and how pandemic became such a viral sensation, and how you're really not just making a difference, but an impact, and the word that comes to mind is justice, because obviously this is the Truth Lab, but justice is so important, and obviously for your brother, and then I'm thinking about Fauci, man, and I don't want to get negative, but do you feel there will be justice? I mean, here we are, and obviously it's great with, Make America Healthy Again, and we could only imagine this, right? A year ago or 4 years ago, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you got to be grateful.
My guess is that Anthony Fauci will be, to some degree, brought to justice. Whether he'll do any time or not is different. Whether he'll find some immunity loophole, I don't know. But if you learn how to pay attention to the narratives, they're looking for a scapegoat. And over the past couple of years, year and a half or so, they've been certainly testing the field on what it would be like if he was the scapegoat. And they may end up throwing him under the bus to try to take the attention off of the people who were truly behind it. And while he's a really bad front man, he didn't organize this. He's just so greedy that he allowed things to happen in his name and lied, and so many lies. I mean, this guy's lied under oath. He could be in prison just for lying under oath at least 2 times or more. That he said things in Congress that later found out through leaked emails and other various ways that he knew was a lie. It wasn't a mistake, it was a lie. And so all these people who think he's this sweet little doctor, he's a really wicked person. He's a very, very wicked person who's been doing this for over 40 years. And a lot of people are waking up to that right now. When I released Pandemic 1 in 2020, I got a lot of backlash because people thought he and Bill Gates were the most generous philanthropists on the planet trying to save lives, and very few people think that now. So it's wonderful to see that people are coming around and they're waking up to the reality of it. And I understand that it's hard. It's really difficult for people. It's very similar to the 5 stages of grief. The first stage is denial, and a lot of people are still stuck in the first stage of really, I think people get stuck because they don't understand the game. I'm making a movie right now to spell out exactly how they do these things so people can understand how it happens. But a lot of people get stuck because they think, well, surely you don't think all of these doctors and hospitals were all in on this, do you? And none of them are coming forward to admit it. No, that's not how it works. It's top down, and it is a very strategic plan to create narratives that make people panic, to tell doctors and hospitals that their lobbies are going to be overflowing with COVID patients. And for a minute they were, but those are just people with sniffles that were so paranoid that at the first sign of a cold, they ran to the emergency room. But then when the COVID patients didn't show up and these hospitals had at least hundreds or dozens of very expensive ventilator machines and flew in nurses from around the world and every day shuttle them back and forth to a high-priced hotel or Airbnb that the hospital's paying for, and then to realize that all of the patients weren't there the way that the media said they would be, that leaves directors of hospitals. And got to keep in mind, directors of hospitals are rarely doctors anymore. They're bureaucrats, they're CEOs, they're businesses. And so it leaves these people looking at the bottom line and realizing, well, we just spent our annual budget on refurbishing our parking garage into an ICU unit, and now everyone's going to be out of a job. And then lo and behold, the CDC sends around a little memo saying, well, if you cycle the PCR test to 40, which we all know what the hell that does, it's Kerry Mullis, who invented the PCR test, said it should never be cycled beyond 27. But if you go up to 40, you'll find COVID in everybody. And that's what Kerry Mullis said. He said it's kind of like blowing up a photograph, and it gets closer and closer, and you find whatever you're looking for in every body, because to some degree we hold cancer cells and everything in our body to some degree, and if you look deep enough you're going to find that. And so the CDC said to cycle it to 40, so now they can claim everyone COVID, so they get paid for that. And then all the people who came in with gunshots or were hit by a bus or whatever it might be, and they realized, well, if we can put him on a test here before he dies, cycle it up to 40, call it COVID, put him on a ventilator real fast, then we get another $36,000 or whatever the price is for certain regions. And we can make up to $700,000. In some cases, I've heard $1 million per patient to make our money back. And so it was this really wicked incentive program that forced a lot of good people to do really evil things. And that's what we're about to blow the whistle on here in the next couple of months.
What's it going to be called?
It's called Bad Medicine.
All right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, thank you so much for doing that. I mean,
Sure.
for those who haven't seen Plandemic the musical, I had the one and only Deepak on. He's fantastic, so inspiring after he was on the TruthLab and just, everything. I wish I could have connected with him. I think he was in my area in Tampa. It will happen at some point. But that was just incredible. So creative to do a musical, and got to really commend you for that. And plus,
well, thank you. We may actually re-release it under a different name. A lot of people didn't see it because they were really ready for us on that one, and they had What I was told a couple of months ago, pandemic is the most censored word in the world. There's no hashtags for it. And so we might re-release it under a different name since there's a new pandemic that they're trying to peddle here.
Okay. Oh, because I know it won a bunch of awards and stuff like that. And, we just, as we know, we have the creative, force with us, and that will always overcome deception and coercion and all of that, but it takes courage. And I just want to share, because I had Justin Harvey on last night. I know he was in my area when Fauci was in Sarasota, and kind of, Justin drove from Orlando to kind of rally a group, and they had a huge elephant. And so basically it's like the elephant in the room, and they were trying to, wake up or at least plant some seeds for all the people spending hundreds of dollars thinking Fauci's some kind of hero. And I hate to even say that with what I know now about what you've been through. I mean, longer than I've been on this earth. I was born in 1990, and it's intense, Mikki. But
yeah, indeed.
I really appreciate you sharing like how your truth journey started that way. And then obviously I'm a little privy to like how you were involved with a particular, person, we could say Bernie Sanders or his campaign, and how, that also was kind of part of an awakening or part of a truth seeking as well, right? Too.
Oh, it was. I was born and raised in California, and when you're born and raised in California, there's only one political party. You hear about the other one, but you only hear about it when people are needing a reference towards greed and racism. That's all the other party is as far as they're concerned. And so all of my life, I just heard about the horrible Republicans. And so, of course, we joined the one good, benevolent party, the party that cares about us, the party of tolerance and love. And I ended up on the road with Bernie Sanders doing all of his media in 2015 and helping build his grassroots campaign. And it was during that process that I traveled with him from California to Philadelphia. And along the way, there were a lot of young people, college-age people with communist paraphernalia on, stickers on their water bottles and laptops and T-shirts and hats. And I started noticing them and thinking, what is this? Like, why is everyone wearing Che Guevara and Lenin shirts and sickle and hammer stickers? Like, what is this about? And I started, as it appeared to the public that I was Bernie's guy so I could be trusted, they started to open up and tell me that, that I didn't know this. I know now because I've gone deep into Marxism to really understand it. But Karl Marx has said that comrades, the goal is communism, but for now we must call it socialism. And they turned me on to things like that, and so I would say, are you saying that you actually want communism? And they would go into these diatribes about how it is the only model that can save America, and it's the only one that can end the greed and the capitalism. And I've never been anti-capitalism. I'm anti-greed for sure. I think capitalism, free market, is the most benevolent structure that there is to allow people to do the work they want to do, have a vision, and if they work hard enough and are smart enough in what they put out in the world, they will succeed. Unfortunately,
wow.
Sometimes greed overrides that. Oftentimes, most of the time, I should even say, greed overrides that with the people who have succeeded, who have billions of dollars, and they crush all the other people down at the bottom. And so it becomes, crony capitalism. But it's throwing the baby out with the bathwater when we start to talk against capitalism. And so I started hearing all this rhetoric on the road with Bernie, and then I had friends call me that were much more educated about that stuff than I was at the time. And they told me straight out, they said, I don't think you know who he is. And I don't think you know that he's a sellout and that he's going to cash everything in. All that money you're helping him raise, he's going to turn it over to the DNC and Hillary Clinton, and he's going to endorse her. And I thought, that is the absolute craziest thing I've ever heard. If you hear what he says about her on stage, that's the last person that this man would endorse. And there we are in Philadelphia, and he says, I endorse Hillary Clinton. And I called my wife up immediately. I said, book me a red eye. I'm coming home right now. And I had to really regroup and rethink the way that I interacted in the world of politics and whether I wanted to ever again or not. And so I spent the following few years studying really hard, looking at the history, understanding the game of politics, and the psychology of politics, the psychology of propaganda. Studied all the different Project Mockingbirds and all the different ways that our people have been mind controlled and hypnotized, and and have willingly, little by little, released our liberties and our human rights, all within this dirty game that is designed to do just that. And so once I got to the bottom of that, then I kind of re-entered politics and just decided, look, I'm not going to pick a side. I think it's dangerous anytime we call ourselves a Republican or a Democrat or anything like that, a liberal. For me, it's about truth, and it's about a fair system, an honest, integral system. And neither party truly represents that. One certainly represents it more than the other. I think the Democrats, now that I've left that party, I can see it with clear eyes. It is a very, very corrupt and even evil cult. I heard things for years, being in Hollywood for 35 years. I heard a lot of rumors. I'd been to a couple of suspicious parties where it felt like, we're leaving at midnight, but I wonder what goes on here after midnight. Like, it's like this, I could feel the vibe here. It's weird. But I never saw it. I've heard about things, and I had people approach me to tell me things about the Satanist and all this stuff. And I just thought they were just a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists. Everything was Illuminati and New World Order and all that. And lo and behold, they were right. And all that shit is real. And so it was shocking to me too. And I went through my 5 stages of grief, but come out the other side, realizing too that one of their plans is to deaden the human soul and to kill our will to live. And so there's nothing that they can do to me that would achieve that. I keep living. I surround myself full of happy, wonderful people. I have an incredible relationship with my children and my wife. We live a really, really happy, consistently happy life. And that is the best medicine towards this dark energy, because it's a frequency game. And a lot of people don't realize that. We live in an electromagnetic, vibrational world. And everything has its own frequency. Like in the room that you're in right now is filled with Wi-Fi signals and AM radio and FM radio, and anything. You just have to have a tuner to tune into it. It's all floating in the air where you are right now. CB stations, everything's right there. And you can't see them and you can't necessarily feel them. And that's the same for human energy, human vibration, human frequencies. There's really, really dark, destructive, murderous energies, and there's higher energies that are here to produce life, to produce an experience that feels good and not negative. And so the more we lift our vibration authentically, that requires us to have what I call divinity consciousness, to realize that even the bad stuff, the stuff that doesn't feel good, is in its own way divine. Mm-hmm. And so our family moves through crisis really fast, because something happens and we go, wow, whew, that hurts. That feels unfortunate. But what is the gold in this? It's like the art of alchemy. What is the gold in this? And what is the lesson, and how do we learn from it? And the moment we ask ourselves those questions, we see that there's value in every experience, and we take that value in, we let it elevate our awareness, and we move on to the next good thing.
I love you said elevate, because I remember when I interviewed you before, I reminded you about it's time for free energy.
Yeah.
And elevate, right? And
yeah, so we've been doing this for years. Yeah, our company is called Elevate, and we did a video back in 2011, I think, all about free energy.
Yeah,
because we really started to look into that at that point. What was available, and all these things. These things are all real, and they've all these technologies that have been kept from the people because they would solve the problems that they need to keep alive. And I think the most useful technologies are the ones that the human body holds, and those are the ones that have really been kept secret from us. we're given these phones and these busy schedules so that we don't have time to be still, because within the stillness, the answers are there. The old art of meditation, which is just basically sitting still and letting the momentum of your mind slow down enough so that you can let God in.
Well,
that's all it is.
Well, you're reminding me, you mentioned something called the American Family. Does that ring a bell? Do you remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did that project complete or what?
It did not. In micro ways, we've done many different projects around the American family, but I was going to make a movie about that. But lo and behold, we have a big fundraiser here in Texas, I think in July next month. And one of the projects that we're going to be presenting to people is a movie that I want to make regarding the family and fatherhood.
That's beautiful, because that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like when you're talking about elevate and love, and it's like, well, family, and it's like, I'm all about live and let live. I know you are too. And it's like, I understand it's just right now with Pride Month and everything, and it's all fine. But I will say it's like family, it's like when we have strong, loving families, we have people that are excelling. And then eventually you don't have people depending on corrupt government, because even if government could somehow be ethically, morally virtuous, it's like, it's about people taking responsibility. It's kind of like my friend Justin, all the effort he put into helping get fluoride out of the public water in Florida. And people are like, well, who's going to take care of my teeth? It's like, it's not your city commissioner or county commissioner's responsibility to take care of you. Like, take personal responsibility, like, if you know what I mean? And then, so anyways, it's
well, I mentioned will to live a little bit ago, and it's very, very important. My mom was a cancer survivor. She lived with it for over a decade. And the moment my brother died, the guilt and the shame of that, she lost the will to live and died 34 days later. And so when you witness that, and there's so many stories of elderly people, once one goes, within 2 weeks, the other one goes, and so that will to live is a very real thing. And so what gives us the will to live? I challenge your audience to make a list of that. To sit down after this podcast and to listen and to make that list. What gives you the will to live? And, on top of my list is family.
Yep.
There's nothing I wouldn't do to protect my wife or my children. And that's one of the reasons that they want to terrorize the next generations with climate change. They've all vowed not to have children. Why would you have children when the world's going to end in 9 years? That's all psychological warfare. And why would you have children when you think we're going to be in war and everything's polluted? And why would you have children if you don't even know what gender you are? There's just a lot of, all that is to stop people from creating family, good old-fashioned family, where the archetypes are in natural alignment, intrinsically aligned with who we were born to be. My wife is a woman, and she acts like a woman, and she respects my role as the masculine, as the male, and that gives her security and safety. She doesn't have to pretend to be boss woman and all these things that women are trying to be out there, which has left them miserable. Women are more depressed than men these days, more medicated and depressed. And it's all because of this, third and fourth wave feminism that convinced them that they don't need a man and that they just need to go out and crush the business world. And they're exhausted. And it's a role that most women are not designed to play. And I don't even know how to the degree that men are playing it, that we're even designed to play it all the way and be working 12, 16 hours a day. I don't think anyone was built to do that. But we're certainly, when you honor those primal roles, then the children are healthier. I always, my metaphor is the children I was raised with a single mom. And so I was deficient, and the only male figure in my family was gay, my brother. So I was deficient in the father frequency. And it took me, as a result of that, it took me years to do a lot of work to come back in to balance my own frequency out and understand what the hell it means to be a man and how to be one and what is my real role here. And my metaphor is, it's this planet. If the moon went away, everything would die. If the sun went away, everything would die. And they call it Mother Moon and Father Sun. It is literally the two polar energies that all the nature outside your room, your window, needs those two energies. If it was just sunny all day long, we'd have a lot of issues. Everything would die. If it was just moon all day long, right? So it's, and our boys are being mostly raised not just by mothers, but they're preschool teachers, they're teachers, they're being taught and raised by women. So there, and a woman can only do so much, just like a man can only do so much to raise a woman. If we're not that, and we have a little girl on our own, we can be great fathers and do a really great job. But there's always going to be an element of that that's missing, of things that we don't know how to articulate because we're not a woman. And there are a lot of things that are missing when our boys are raised and taught only by women. Mm-hmm. They don't have that rites of passage, that understanding like my boys have. I talk all the time. I sit down and talk to my boys about different stages I went through, what to expect, how to navigate it, how to come through it, how to truly be respectful to women, how to not become a sex addict, how to stay away from pornography, all the things that are very damaging to the male psyche. You know, my boys are really privy to. You know, my 13-year-old just did his first TED Talk on Saturday and crushed it.
I saw that. You must
it was amazing.
So proud. It's because think about it, 10 years from now, you'll look back on that moment. I mean, that's what life is, these precious moments that we don't really learn the value of them till they become a memory. And
well, my boys have confirmed in me a hunch that I've had forever, and that is humans are amazing. They're amazing when they're given the tools that they need and they're not severed from their natural abilities. And so my boys are extraordinary, but not just because they're my boys, it's because of the way that they were raised. And every child has potential to be extraordinary. But most parents, and I know because I function with a lot of families here, my wife and I ran a school for a year and a half, and I had a lot of fathers coming to me for advice, you know, because they just weren't given the tools to, you know, my kids, I caught him doing this. What would you say? What do I don't want to shame him. What's the proper punishment, or do I punish, or how do I help him? And it made me really realize that this is a needed thing in the world, because not only it's mostly because men are afraid to allow their natural selves to bloom, because they hear things like toxic masculinity, and they see women complain about men when they're too manly, and so they think, well, what do I do? And a lot of men are with women who don't allow them to be men, who will, when the man actually, the kids need strength. And it's very important. A lot of women don't understand that when a man gets strong with a child, loud, you know, and lets them know that there's a hierarchy in the family, a lot of women will shut them down and say, stop being mean, stop raising your voice, when it's a very valuable thing to pass on to young men and actually young women too. Because what happens is, I come from the New Age cult, and the New Age cult always taught us this conscious parenting thing, which was basically just let the kid run all over you. That's what it was. Let them be free, let them express what they need to express. And I saw parents at the park when we lived in Ojai. One time his little boy hit his mom in the face, and she's going, I see you're angry. Ow, that hurts, mommy. You're really frustrated. And I thought, that's, you know, you're allowing that kid to do something that's going to actually turn on them later. You think you're being patient, you're not. What's going to happen is that kid's going to turn on his mother. He's going to resent her for being weak. He's going to resent his father for being weak. And he's going to develop ego, because ego is the shield we develop when we are old enough to realize the world is not safe. So let me develop a language, a persona, whatever it might be, so that I can keep, you know, this shield up around me and protect myself. And that becomes ego. And then they'll spend the next 10, 20, 30 years of their life trying to get rid of their ego and dealing with the repercussions of having relationships through the facade of their ego. And it will harm them. And so the best thing you can do is be a strong parent, loving, nurturing, all the way. But when it's time to be very strong, because then the kid says, if you allow the kid to overtake you, to manipulate you, then the kids internally, the kids thinking, who has my back? If I am smarter than my mom and dad where I can actually manipulate them, then who's smart enough to actually hold me, to protect me in this world? And when they know that they have a man in the house and their dad will take care of business. And my kids have seen me. Things have happened out in the world where people don't respect my kids, and they've seen me go toe to toe with other people of like baseball field. I coached baseball, and we've had coach to coach arguments and arguments with family members and stuff like that because of the way they're speaking to my kids or other kids. And so they've seen me willing to stand face to face and even go very close to getting physical with people to demand that they actually treat those children properly. And so my kids see that and go, whoa, wow, I'm safe. And so far they haven't developed any of these false personas because they know they have someone that will protect them to the death.
We could go on and on. I love all of that. I mean, for one, you're getting me, and I don't want to go on a tangent, but just how we could look at things like a toxic society or narcissism somewhat, due to but the idea that if we focus on children and being great examples for them, then that will just kind of fade away, because it's kind of like it continues. Like I can relate because I was raised by a single mom too, but guess what? I found purpose just like you. I'm not a father yet, but that's why I work hard, because to be a provider, and like you said, of course, your purpose is to protect your family, but remember, you promote their health, because remember, when we want to thrive, we can't always be, on guard and protecting, I mean, sometimes there's a science like in nature, it's tough for things to simultaneously be protecting and also growing, so it's kind of interesting, and it's like we want to cultivate a reality where it's all about growth and thriving and promoting health and well-being, because it's about the day when you're blessed to have grandkids, right? and all
and as parents, what I learn too is it's about not playing one note. If you relate that to a song, imagine how a one song note, how boring that would be. A one note song, I'm sorry. And so it's also about changing it up. It's not about being tough all the time. We ran into a little issue with my boys last night, very minor thing, but I didn't show them any strength at all. And they kind of expected that. They kind of expected that, uh-oh, Dad's going to be pissed. And I wasn't pissed at all. I just said, what is the cost of this for you making those choices? And I want you to really think about that, because the cost is trust. And with trust goes opportunities to have sleepovers. And it was about them having a sleepover. And I found out they played video games for 7 hours, and my kids don't play much video games at all, and I would have expected them to play 2 or 3 max and walk away and say, that's enough, because I know the damage it does. Yeah. But they allowed themselves to indulge for 7 hours. And they stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning. And I said, okay, every now and then that's okay. Every now and then that's okay. I want you guys to make your choices, and I want you to feel whether that's a good choice for you or not. And there'll come a point when you'll understand that it's actually damaging to your body and you won't want to do it anymore. But, I told them the story. I've repeated to them a few times. I said, raised by a single mom, my brothers and sisters, one was 12 and the other one was 13 and 15 or so. And so my mom was kind of like, look, I have teenagers. I've already learned the hard way. My mom was a mom at 14 years old. She couldn't do it today. She'd probably be arrested. Wow. But she would say, where are you going tonight, boys? And, well, we're just going. And she'd say, you're going to go out. If you're going to drink, why don't I buy you a 12-pack of beer and you stay home where you're safe? My friends would be like, what? Wow, what? But it was actually a really good move, because when all my friends got to that stage in high school where they were, skipping out and sneaking out and going to keggers and getting drunk and driving, I was like, I don't really even like the taste of beer. I've had it and I'm allowed to do it. So I don't get that charge of being rebellious in that, because my mom lets me do it. And so, no thanks. And so I told my boys that. I said, there's some times when I just want to let you guys, indulge in something and then figure it out yourself. Is this really working for you? Like, do you see any damage that's happening? What was it like after you played 7 hours of video games? You know, my oldest boy was like, I've noticed that it kind of started a little addiction. Like I'm thinking about that game a lot now.
Wow.
And
Some good self-reflection right there, at least.
yeah. I said, okay, and then that's creating neural pathways that will open you up to other addictions in life. And so that's the cost of it. And so you just have to decide, you have to decide whether or not it's worth it. And and what you get from being disciplined by saying no to things that bring you pleasure, that'll get any man stronger than any gym, lifting any weights will get you. It's just having a desire, having, that wanting something so bad, but then knowing it's not good, and exercising from a young age the power to say, I really want it, but I'm going to choose not to have it. And every time you do that, it's like lifting weights. Your mind is lifting weights for a year. It's that much stronger because you've overcome the temptation, the lure. And that gives you strength in life to have, my 13-year-old told me the other night, he had a couple of boys over and they went walking to the park. It was like 10 at night. And the next day he told me, he goes, yeah, one of them said, why don't we doorbell ditch? Which is something I did as a kid, not because I had no one to help me understand how stupid that is. And he said, why would we do that? Why would we disrupt somebody in the middle of the night? Maybe they're sleeping. Maybe it'll scare them. Like, why is that fun to you? I don't get it. And he was very logical about it. And lo and behold, the next day he told me this. And a little while later, it pops up on my YouTube feed that 2 boys in Texas, 2 or 3 boys did that. And one of them got shot and killed.
Are you serious?
I said, boys, come here. I want to show you something. I showed them the video and they go, oh my God. I said, that could have been you. You may have saved your friend's life or your own life just with that little choice. And good on you, because these boys were older. He's 13 and they were 14 and 15. Good on you for not succumbing to the temptation to want to fit in with older boys. And you taught them a valuable lesson.
That's incredible. I mean, I'm sure you've shared. I mean, I wish I had learned sooner. We're a product of our environment. And there's the whole saying, we are the result of the 5 people we spend the most time with, Yeah. So sometimes it's kind of like that simple, where there's no temptation if you're not associating with people like that. And I know it's tough being kids and stuff, but it's kind of like, I mean, even now, if I could go back in time and I was 13, I'd want to hang out with kids that are thinking like entrepreneurial somewhat,
Yeah.
It's like that, because some of them understand the value of time. And like, I get it. We all got to relax and have fun, but sometimes the entrepreneur is like, sacrificing some of that, for freedom to not be, for lack of better words, chained to a 9 to 5 and then hoping for retirement one day,
Yeah.
Call it hopium, it's like,
yeah.
But you're such a good man. And it's nice hearing this side of you, Mikki. It's really, beautiful. Yeah. Because I do believe the purpose of life is family. And, I don't want to go all over the place. I mean, obviously, I kind of bring up things like the Jones Plantation. It was so exciting talking to you about that, because even through your own awakening, and I wish more people knew about that, because people know about libertarianism, but then sometimes they're not too familiar with volunteerism. And I think, Foster Gamble, he's a fellow filmmaker like you. He's going to be in TruthLab, but he's been so focused on a book about stateless societies. And he believes his purpose has culminated to helping us understand how we can transition to stateless societies, because it's not like a one size fits all, something like that,
Yeah. Great.
I want to believe these people, RFK and everyone else. I mean, the new Surgeon General. I mean, I really do want to believe everything is happening to help us thrive. But then I sometimes look at government, what it kind of purpose is. And then when we see family, so I don't want to get into that. But as too, there's, a truth documentary about World War II. And it talks about a certain place where there was the highest honor for a woman in that society was to be a mother. And once you had 4 kids, your house was paid for. And if you had more children, you actually got paid to have children because they viewed that is a woman's purpose, to be feminine and a mother, but then somehow we're in this kind of, interesting time where we're dealing with feminism and so on.
Well, the women who have bought into that whole thing, they have no idea what the cost is. And some of them it works for some reason, and maybe it works temporarily. I think there's an expiration date on all of that behavior at some point, because I've known a lot of powerful women working in and out of the circuitry of Hollywood, and years later, I've circled back with them, and there's a very common story, which is, I follow you and Nadia. I'm so happy to see you guys on Facebook or whatever, and your loving family, and God, it just really makes me wish I would have taken that route, and it's like they got conned out of the most beautiful experience that a woman can have, really. And it's a shame. It's really a shame, because it is all by design, and we are facing the threat of population collapse. I mean, Elon talks about it, and it's real. We're nowhere near overpopulation. That's one of the biggest lies ever.
Yeah.
29% of the earth is land, the rest is sea. 2% of that is uninhabitable, high desert or Arctic, leaves something like 27%, and we currently occupy about 2% of that. And so there's like somewhere between 22 and 25% of the earth that's still available, despite the fact that there's 8 billion of us. And so, it's just that there's a depopulation agenda that's happening, and they don't want people to procreate, because when there's too many of us, and now we have these tools to communicate with each other, the internet, which we never had before, which really messes it up for the tyrants, because that's why they're going to work so hard and shutting down the internet, because it's really a problem. When we can, when they locked us in our home in 2020, they thought we'd go watch MSNBC and CNN and The View and get indoctrinated, but everybody went to their encrypted apps and started sharing information. And that really woke them up to say, oh shit, we made a major mistake here, because now everyone's aware of what's going on. They underestimated us. And that's just because they're that out of touch with humanity. And those who did go in and watch mainstream media, they're the ones still wearing a mask, and it's a shame, but I think sooner or later, as this year progresses on, I think, and people start to see that there are record illnesses and really, really serious problems in terms of fertility, that they're going to reach the end of denial and understand that that there really is an agenda to reduce the population, because there's power in numbers. And so what we need to do is get out there, make babies, make families, and make healthy babies. Feed them right, teach them how to think, not what to think, and watch what they do. Watch what they do. There were 9 kids who did this TED Talk. It was a youth TED Talk. My son and 8 girls, and it was wonderful just to see these. All 9 of them were just extraordinary human beings, young, from 10 years old to one was 18, but the rest are all about 13 years old, 14 maybe. And they're extraordinary. And when you meet their parents, you go, oh, I see why. It's no coincidence. It's not, I don't really believe that these things are in the genes. If it is, it's very minute. I think either one of my sons could have turned out really bad if they would have been raised in a different way. It's just that they were raised in a very conscious way. They're aware of my work. They're aware of the truth of the world. When Azai got done with his TED Talk, somebody gave him an offer to be part of a youth project at the United Nations. He came to me. I said, he saw my reaction. He goes, what's wrong? What's wrong, Dad? I said, the United Nations is not a good organization. Very, very wicked organization. But yet you know what, buddy? It's okay. It's right. It's an experience, and you're already so bulletproof. I'm not worried about them harming you or not. It'd be kind of cool for you to see what they talk about on the inside. So I welcome you to do it. And he says, let me sleep on it. And the next day he said, I decided not to do it, Dad, but not because of the UN, but because I want to have a childhood. And I feel like I'm 13 right now, and I have many years to be an entrepreneur and to rock the world. But for the next couple of years, I just want to be a kid. And I was like, how awesome is that? How awesome. Because I saw a lot of kids in Hollywood that weren't given that opportunity. And the parents, the parents saw them as their meal ticket. And these kids were robbed of their childhood, and you don't get that back. You don't get that innocence back. And so I was really proud of him to choose to protect himself and his innocence.
I love that, because when we have an abundant mindset, opportunities are always coming to us. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
what I joke about is managing abundance, managing opportunities. Where what happens when you have to start? It's called what's called opportunity. And you just have to basically evaluate your opportunities.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
and it all comes from an abundant mindset. So I will say, I'm kind of thinking, like, with what you love doing, besides obviously spending time with your family, with truth films, is there like a mainstream truth film that you really enjoy, or you would say is your favorite? It's been coming to my mind a lot, Truman Show. We could always maybe get into that, but I'm just kind of curious if there's like a mainstream, Hollywood movie that you feel really resonates with you about truth.
Yeah, Truman Show is fantastic, and my kids love that. The Matrix has always been and will always be a very important movie. I think that it was so far ahead of its time to really understand that there is a matrix that we're living in. That's always been one of the most important truth-telling films, in my opinion. Other than a lot of the documentaries are mostly where you find the really hard-hitting truth. But I don't even watch. Let me open this door. It's getting a little dark out here. Let me see if I can get a little more light. There we go. I don't really watch movies too much anymore. Even though I'm a filmmaker, I don't enjoy most of the movies that are being made these days. And every now and then I hear about one that has some good heart in it, and it's always wonderful to see films that are have those good character-driven story plots, and they're not relying on a bunch of effects and outlandish plots. And so all the superhero films I'm done with. It just got so boring. It's the same script over and over with a different paint job. It's and I'm very busy. I'm always producing 4 to 6 films, and so I don't really have time. My sister-in-law lives across the street, and she wanted us to start a new series last night, and I said no. And she said, why? I think you'll love it. And I said, that's the problem. I probably will love it, and I can't afford the 20 hours investment into this whole series because I'm on a mission, and that doesn't mean I don't have fun. We have fun multiple times a week, and every weekend we're on some adventure. We're always doing something with our family, and I won't even travel anymore unless they'll pay for my family to come with me. It's just you got to get your priorities in line, and I traveled for about a year, and I didn't take my family with me, and I look back on it and I thought, what was the real value in that? Speaking to rooms of 500 to 3,000 people or whatever, it was good. Definitely offered something for them, but on a personal basis, I'm making my movies which reach millions of people. So is that my highest service, to speak to a room of 500 people, and miss out on the 2 days it takes me to fly and speak and come back, miss out on those 2 days with my wife and kids. And I couldn't find any moment that it was worth it. So I just stopped doing it. And unless when I get calls, I just say, whatever, I'll waive a speaker's fee if you just fly my wife and my kids with us and with me. Then that way we'll have a little mini vacation. And so we'll usually end up staying for an extra day or two wherever we go. And so we have multiple vacations a year and get to see new parts of the world. And as a result, my boys, they're very comfortable with wide range of people because they're always in different environments. meeting a lot of people, and I think that's very healthy for them.
That's awesome. I love that. And, I was kind of alluding to like opportunity cost, that's, the cost of opportunity. So I will say, I mean, we're kind of, running out of time. I want to be respectful. I bring up Truman Show just because I am curious about your worldview, like I will say, it's kind of interesting to think if we are in some type of Truman Show and this world is much more mysterious and, bigger than a lot of us were indoctrinated since childhood to believe. So how would you describe your worldview? Would you say you subscribe to mainstream views like the heliocentric model or Big Bang, like what the mainstream consensus is about?
They're making a movie right now about intelligent design.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a very fascinating subject, and there's a lot of scientists that are in the movie who did not believe in intelligent design until they were 20, 30 years into their work, and they realized that. Sorry, I have another Zoom meeting coming through. I don't know why.
Oh, really?
I don't know if I had another call or not. What time? Yeah. Oh well, they're gonna have to wait.
Yeah, we have like 10 minutes left.
Yeah, sure, that'll be fine. Yeah, it's learning from this film, which all my films are really great educations, for the whole team, because we go deep into new subjects and we get to learn things that we didn't know before, and it's been very fascinating to hear these scientists really break it down through a scientific lens, that there's an intelligence behind all of creation. Uh-huh. And they also believe in the age of the Earth, so there's no discrepancy between the fossilization of the planet that we can prove that it's older than a lot of the creationists will say, believe it is, and so that's what I think kind of breaks down their argument. And so there's a kind of a middle ground that we're finding in this movie, that there is an intelligence, and I've always believed that. I've never not believed that, even when I didn't believe in God, and I very much believe in God now. But even when I did not believe in God, I always still felt, because I've always been an observer of nature, and it's always just been fascinating to me that birds can murmurate at 1,000 birds fly as one body in such synchronistic beauty and perfection, that the flowers know what to do every morning, the bees know what to do, the birds know. It's extraordinary the way that the orchestration. Okay. Oh, got it. Yeah, that was Eastside Morales. I have a call with him, so I'll do that as soon as we're done with that. He plays the bad guy in the new Mission Impossible. Been a friend for many years.
I was going to bring that up. I brought my mom to go see.
Yeah, we're doing a show together in LA, so that was his producer calling. Anyway, I believe that. When it comes to the simulation stuff and all that, I really don't get into that, because if I saw a value that if through that discovery that it would change my life and I would know how to better navigate my life, I would go further into it. But as far as I've looked into it, I thought, well, what if I get there and discover that it is? I'm still going to play this game. I have children. And so I'm still going to obey the rules within this programmed adventure that we're on, and my biggest mission is to help people understand the power of nature and the need to return to our natural way of being. Within the modern world, I don't mean let go of you see, there's nothing but technology behind me. It's not about letting go of any of that, but it's about using it, not letting it use us, but also understanding that all this synthetic digital realm that's starting to take over our world is deadly. And the more that we stay connected with our environment, with ourselves, and the more time we spend barefoot on the ground and drinking good water and eating real food, the healthier we will be, the more human we'll maintain our humanity. And as my son learned this from me, and he put this in his TED Talk, which is our humanity will become the Holy Grail very soon. There's a lot of people losing their humanity, and they're going to go too far to where they won't have the strength, the mental acuity to get it back. And so pretty soon, in the same way that right now there's a lot of talk around unvaccinated sperm, there's a lot of women wanting to have children, but they don't want vaccinated sperm. It's like gold. And so the thing that's really going to be gold is our humanity. People that are able to hold eye contact, to actually be present, to experience another human being, not just through the overcycled thoughts waiting to talk and judging and analyzing, but to actually to experience someone. And that's going away very rapidly. My sons recognize it all the time, as they have a hard time finding new friends, because they're like, Dad, they just, all they want to do is play video games and talk about video games, and and it's like they're digitized. They are the characters that they've been playing, and so it's very important that we. There's a lot of people, I think, that have become disillusioned by being human, and that's all by design. I mean, if you look at our history of mythologies and stories and movies and that we've been telling ourselves forever, we changed that story from the hero's journey story to a story where the humans are the parasite, humans are the failed experiment. Men, fathers are just the dumb guy on the couch with his hand halfway down his pants, and no one listens to dad anymore. There's no wisdom coming from dad. Grandpa's just old, put him in a home. And all this is by design, so that we lose our humanity, and that we stop passing our humanity down to the next generation. And they learn from the internet, and they learn sex through porn, and they learn adventure through video games. And that's where they want us, because then we lose our will to live. We lose our physical ability to have skills that build new worlds, that solve problems. And now we're susceptible to just, the solution is then hiring the right leader to lead us. And that's the mess we're in right now.
Yeah, well, as we're kind of coming to an end here, I guess I'll bring up Sean Hibbler. Do you know about Hibbler Productions? Because a lot of his documentaries are truth-oriented. So he came out with Occupy last November, which gets into, unfortunately, the United States does appear to be occupied by a foreign agent. And, I know the movie, yeah. Yeah. So that's one example. And then he came out with Old World Order. And I just got this book. I mean, it's only $15 on Amazon. The Secret History of Human Resets. There's a picture from the Chicago World Fair on it. I mean, this is a subject I've been studying quite a bit, and so mind-blowing, Mikki. So, I mean, I guess I brought up the whole heliocentric thing just because, in my opinion, this shouldn't be rocket science. Like there's reality, and then there's our perception of reality. And so it's like, how can we have a perception of reality that matches reality? And it's not like there's only one correct way to perceive reality, but at least it being accurate, So I guess, some people can be open-minded to, we faked going to the moon. I mean, talk about filmmaking. If you look into Eyes Wide Shut, one of my favorite movies, just because when you learn about Stanley Kubrick and everything, and even The Shining and this symbology, like, it's very interesting in how he passed away, like right as that movie was coming out. How Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, they weren't just pretending to be husband and wife, they literally were, but then they like divorced right after, so I can go on, but I'm saying, some people can become, open-minded to the implications of a lie that big. And then it kind of leads to what other lies are there. And, a lot of people sometimes they don't question, is the sun 93 million miles away? Is it just a coincidence? The moon's 250,000 miles away and they both line up. And, there's implications to this, because it's like, if we want to be sane, we want to kind of somewhat understand. And like, I see the model like as a clock, and it's not that I fully understand it, but when you talk about intelligent design, in my perspective, that's a much more sane model than the heliocentric model, kind of seeing it as a clock somewhat. So
sure. Yeah. I don't rule out, I rule out very few things these days, because everything is possible. And But I also understand that it's very important that we stay grounded in at least basic reality. I have a lot of friends. I think there's cognitive traps on both ends of the spectrum. The one side, people believe the government is the answer and that vaccines are safe and effective, and that's that side. And the other side, goes so far detached from reality that all they have to hear is one thought leader saying, that all humans are frogs, and they believe it or whatever. It's like they just go there. And I think that they're all traps, because the moment that we start to believe things just because they're possible, we start to lose touch with our critical thinking ability, and that becomes dangerous, because I have a few friends that believe in everything. Like, talk to them about every conspiracy, and some of them may be true. Loch Ness, Bigfoot, but they just go down the line, and it's like all of it is 100% real, and they claim to have proof for all of it. And then when they send me the proof, I go,
Yeah.
So you've lost it, man. You've lost your ability to dissect what real proof is, and that's the danger. So the agenda wants people at the extreme. The balance, the yin and the yang, happen right in the center, where you can see both ends, and you can weigh them as possibility, and you can look into them, but you stand your ground in the center. It's kind of like that the center post that holds the seesaw. If you go to one end, it's like the whole thing drops. And I know a lot of people that live there, and usually the result is they're not fully mentally strong. It usually is followed by poverty somehow, like they get so detached from reality that they suddenly can't hold a job, or they don't want to hold a job because now holding a job is part of the government agenda or whatever. So they end up, sleeping on couches, and they're 45 years old, and they can't, even think about holding a family, and God forbid they get sick. They don't have insurance. They don't have anything, and look, if that's how you want to live, and if it makes you happy, then awesome. But that's what matters. Are you fulfilled? Are you happy? Because there's a lot of things I would love to not participate in this life, but like, I would love to be able to self-govern. I would be a great self-governor. My family would be great. We self-governance, my family could do it. But the people next door, hell no. They're the ones that are going to drive 130 miles per hour and kill my family on the street, because they're not accountable for their own actions. And they're going to, so many people take advantage of the system. And instead of us operating in a way that I watched Burning Man deteriorate. I went in '99, and it still had a structure to it that was honorable, and there was something there that was really cool. And people were like, let's not bring the $280,000 RV. Let's feel what it's like being in the dirt and the mud, and then all the executives come, and then now it's just all about sex and drugs. And look, there's a portion of that that's fine. Experiment, do what you need to do. But when it becomes about that, and then you go off into this, like this spiritual mumbo jumbo of, like, everyone's dealing right now because the Aubrey Marcus, podcast, everyone's started, and it's great because everyone's started to examine, like, what the hell does radical monogamy mean? How could that possibly mean that you're in a threesome? Like that's the opposite of what monogamy means. So what? And that's the problem with those cultures, is they twist the language because they want to do what's right, but they're slaves to their own body, and so they have to change the language so they can feel better about the way they're behaving. And when you start playing those games, and those games sometimes come from being on the extreme end of that spectrum, because now you can convince yourself of anything. And this is what's happened to the left, right? What's a woman? They don't know. They can't even tell you. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There's what is more important in the human species than mother, than woman? Literally the vessel that brings life onto this planet. And now we can't even define it. And a few years ago, Congress was trying to take away the word mother and call them birthing person. Are you kidding me? Like, that's what happens when you're on the extreme ends. It's suddenly, it's fair game, and there's no ultimate reality. There's no truth. Everything's, subjective, and you can just do whatever you want. And that, they pass that off as freedom. I get to be whoever I want. No, if you live within a world of laws, and I don't mean state laws, but I mean sacred laws.
Natural law, maybe.
Natural law. If you live within that and you can observe, we make up the names. So yes, we made up the name men and women, but it means something. And it means something that should never change.
No.
And the moment we start changing our language to allow for our bad habits, then we get the world that we're living in right now.
Yeah, and I want to make sure you get to spend time now with your wife and your children, because we didn't even get into it, like children that are exposed to sometimes transgender ideas and whatever, and it's like, yeah, but let's just hope that more and more awakening, there's more truth seeking, like you're saying, the critical, thinking, and yeah, but I appreciate you so much. Thank you for sharing your truth seeking journey and just, connecting on such a, deep, powerful and masculine level, and, it shouldn't be weird to like say that, I mean, sometimes, I even say it, it's like a woman is a woman. And I think that's what you said earlier. It's like,
yeah.
But as you can say, you're such a great father, I can tell. But remember, your kids, they listen to you, but it's more of they learn from their life, their experience of, you and your wife, and how that's, and just like I said, you and we were raised by single mothers. So it's like, it is what it is, but if nature is our teacher and we talk about sometimes these opposites, it's like nature's always seeking this equilibrium. So we just got to be like nature, be one with it, right? And learn from it. And so, yeah.
That's right. Biomimicry.
Exactly. Well, thanks again, Mikki. I really appreciate it. Okay. Have some.
Always great to check in with you, brother. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I thought it was cool when you said the guy was trying to talk to you later, just because I didn't want to bring it up. But I did think Tom Cruise was humble, like the way he comes on before a movie and is thanking everybody. Because I know he wasn't just an actor. He's like involved with producing it. And it is what it is. But I kind of live near where he lives, because that's a whole talk. I'm sure you're aware of Scientology.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Mikki, so nice kind of really learning about everything. And I'm sorry again about your brother and mother.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I look forward to connecting with you again.
Sounds great. All right.
All right.
God bless. Peace.
God bless you too. Thanks, bud.
You're welcome. Bye.